Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to another Webinar Wednesday hosted by the Cal State Bakersfield Small Business Development Center. Hey, we've got weather this week. April Fool's Day. Oh, what a great week. This is webinar number 376, April Fool's Day 2026. We're going to be talking about opportunities that may be knocking or the small business fear of missing out. Yes, FOMO comes to Webinar Wednesday. Didn't think I would see that on the horizon, but here it is. FOMO on Webinar Wednesday. So let's get rolling. And yes, it is April Fool's Day. Maybe there's a little bit of foolery in here today. Probably not much, if any. But who knows? Maybe we'll slip something past you. We will be talking about the fear of missing out, the big FOMO, and it's the topic today. And, sometimes I feel that I have the fear of not missing out, that maybe there's too much going on and too much happening. But we're going to talk about the fear of missing out, not my preferred fear of not missing out. So that is our topic today. And yes, the fear of missing out is available opportunities. You could be missing out on opportunities to improve your business, to improve the profitability of your business, the value of your business, a lot of different aspects of your business that we're going to be looking, and that's going to be the focus of today. Our webinar, our economic corner. The economic corner, one of the three main columns that we have during the preliminary and the introductory up to every webinar. We talk a little bit about the economy and how it impacts our particular small business economy. And the general economic conditions, the macroeconomic conditions are one of the things that you really cannot control in your small business. So it is learning to manage your particular business based on the economic threats that are coming. So, sometimes we do like a couple of weeks ago, and we'll play, as we're going to say right here, it says play up past hit. Well, we're going to mention a couple of things from 2 weeks ago when Webinar Wednesday 375 focused on the economy and what was going on. And that is available for you on demand. But that is going to be our economic corner for today. Our capital quarter. Yes, who doesn't want capital or need capital or at some point desire capital for their business? And the capital quarter, it'll kind of play to the news today. It plays to the news that has been going on and also our topic of fear of missing out. So we'll be intertwining, plenty of things such as, oh, perhaps, some of the various capital that's available to you or could be available to you. So we also see our AI column, which is called now AI and question mark. It's a regular feature each week, and it'll be a little bit on AI and the fear of missing out. So it's AI and missing out. We'll go to our capital quarter or capital community calendar. That's what it is. The community calendar that highlights opportunity. We will also take answers to your questions after the presentation today, and your resources are in the chat box. So thank you to our webinar producer, Maureen Butcher-Ding, for working the chat box today. And we do have a poll question. So let's move to our particular poll question for today. I think we have two of them. We'll start off with poll question number one. And poll question number one is, what is the biggest thing holding your business back right now? So, what is the biggest fear you have of holding your business back right now? Is it you have lack of time, lack of capital, not enough customers? Maybe you're operating inefficiently and you want to get it more efficient. And maybe you have an unclear strategy or direction or vision of where you're headed. So, the biggest thing holding you back at this particular junction is lack of time, capital, customers, operating efficiency, or strategy. So we do have about 57% of you participating at this point, looking for our goal always of 70%. So feel free to jump in and answer the biggest thing holding your business back right now. And oh, nice. 71% participating. Just over 70%. That's what we want to see. And nice round numbers all the way across the board. So let's go ahead and end poll question number one and share the results with you. And the biggest thing holding back your business is lack of capital, 40%. 20% is not enough customers. 20% also is operating inefficiencies, and 10% lack of time or strategy. So thank you for sharing your responses to poll question number one. And now we'll move to poll question number two. What area of your business has the most untapped opportunity today? So the untapped potential, your opportunity for today, is it financial management? Is it marketing and customer retention? Is it pricing strategy? Is it technology and automation? So, what area of your business has the most opportunity today? So, we could be looking at one, financial management, two, marketing and customer retention. Pricing strategy is number three, and also technology and automation. And we do have 42% of you participating. So if we can get a few more of you to jump in, we're going to close poll question number two, our final poll question of the day. Not even a April Fool's poll question for you. I must be slipping. But we have half of you that are now participating. So we will give you one last shot and then go ahead and end the poll of your most untapped opportunity today and share the results with you. And we have 63% of you with marketing and customer retention. Boy, that'll surprise our webinar producer, Maureen, our marketing guru at the SBDC. 63% say marketing and customer retention. We have 25% of you that say technology and automation, 13% of you with pricing strategy. So thank you for sharing with us those particular responses, and on with the show we go. And boy, you talk about show, is that a nice bill right there? I'll tell you. That $100,000 bill, definitely my favorite bill ever printed in the United States of America. $100,000 bearing the likeness of former President Woodrow Wilson. So, with the $100,000 bill comes a lot of our changes that are going on and some of the things that are affecting policy as far as SBA lending goes. So, with SBA lending, a lot has been in the news this past week about what is actually going on with, a lot of the funding programs that SBA has and eligibility. And as of a program change that happened about a month ago, exactly a month ago, on March 1st, mentioned it a time or two in March, but the U.S. Small Business Administration now has an ownership requirement to where 100% of business ownership must be U.S. citizens or U.S. nationals. So that's a significant change from the past. And in the past, a lot of the used to be 51% going back prior to 2025 and some of the other things. But now the SBA requires 100% U.S. citizen ownership, and no non-citizenship ownership is allowed to access SBA financing. So those are the key financing programs for a lot of times your bigger loans. So when we're talking about SBA 7A, we're talking about the SBA Guarantee Loan Program. So your bigger loan program that you oftentimes will see get up, into the millions of dollars. The SBA 504 loan program, which is for land and fixed assets. So if you're looking to expand your business and you want to do it via purchasing your own building, for example, the 504 is an excellent program to use. The 504 also works good in those businesses that have a heavy amount of equipment. And then they also have the loan program. So the microloan program is exactly how it sounds. It's just for your smaller loan amounts that can go, depending on the micro lender, down to as little as about $10,000 and then upwards from there to maybe 50 or 100,000. So those are your three main SBA loan programs. There are several variations that we've talked about of the SBA 7A program. And remember, the guarantee program is a loan that is guaranteed by the SBA. It is actually made by a bank that participates in SBA lending. And then what they do is they say that they would not make this loan under normal circumstances. And so they request a guarantee up to approximately 80%. We did find and talk about last week that for the remainder of 2026, SBA lending programs, the fees have been waived. So the fees that can be several thousand into the tens of thousands of dollars for large loans has been waived for 2026. So those are kind of the core loan programs that SBA has. 100% business ownership, U.S. citizens, and they must also have a primary residence in the United States. So not only be a citizen, but actually have as a primary residence be that location in the United States. Okay, a little bit more on that particular topic. No exceptions for non-citizens includes green card holders, which of course are those that have legal permanent residence or legal permanent residence, visa holders, and refugees. And the key thing here is it applies to all direct and indirect, even very small ownerships. So if you're an LLC or an S corp and you have even 1% that's non-citizen, that disqualifies the business. So really, we're getting into an area to where the financial strategy is really important, and really kind of looking into the ownership aspect is something that, if you need to go the SBA route, is something that needs to be addressed by that. As far as impact, the impact, about 10 to 15% of SBA borrowers right now, current borrowers, would be affected. Um, so that is kind of the impact that we're having and starting to see on this. And this has really been really making I believe it was picked up by the Associated Press this week and went pretty much everywhere, both virtual and non-virtually. So uh, gives us an opportunity to talk about it in a little bit more detail than we probably touched about it on earlier aspects of it. So, with that coming, there are other options, and we'll talk about some of these options as we weave in the access to capital throughout today's presentation. Obviously, it is a FOMO, a fear of missing out, and this also kind of may even heighten that particular fear. But there are other programs, and one of them is one that we've talked about and that's gaining traction and is state of California that actually are funds that come from the federal government, come from the Department of Treasury, and they have the State Small Business Credit Initiative, which actually works with a number of different programs and number of different types of borrowers. It was interesting, there are programs in California, such as the California Infrastructure and Economic Development Bank. We like to call it the iBank. And 2 weeks ago, I had discussions with the new CEO of the iBank, who was confirmed by the California Senate a few days previous. And and Andy and I talked a little bit about, the role of where the iBank was headed. And also, we'll be talking a lot more of that. So we will have an entire webinar later this month, most likely, perhaps early in May, dedicated toward some of the programs that are done by the California Infrastructure and Economic Development Bank, or let's just call it the iBank. So, also along the lines of capital is an event coming up with on opportunity zones. Opportunity zones are another kind of unique, resourceful way that through the federal government that can actually fund a particular business. And we had opportunities 1.0 that came out late in the 2000 teens. And now we have opportunity zones 2.0 that's happening. There's been a lot of planning and community engagement meetings. There's one more coming up next Wednesday, April the 8th at noon. Uh, and that's going to be at the Greater Bakersfield Chamber. So normally I won't promote other events that are running the same time as Webinar Wednesday, but it's such a good event or such a good topic to listen to or at least participate in if you're thinking about going the opportunity zone route. And so you can always catch, our fantastic webinar next week on demand if you would prefer, or just wait till the 29th of April and Joe Ariola of the Economic Development Department of the CAO's Office of the County of Kern will be here talking about it in much greater detail. So another thing that kind of jumps up on our community calendar is veteran home ownership. And so some of the good things happening, you talk about one great thing on the calendar, you got to talk about another. So let's talk about some of the great opportunities for veterans to own a home with zero down. There is a seminar that is happening, and it'll be happening at 1120 Golden State, which is Kern County Veterans Services. So it'll be happening 6 to 7 o'clock at night. So great opportunity for you veterans out there, or if you know a veteran who's looking to do something like this is a great way to assist them. Um, so yeah, you guys know our sponsors. Look at those great sponsors, man. But what you don't know is some of the financial challenges that we learned of. And so we learned of the financial challenges from our consortium with the Valley Community SBDC, serving the four counties directly above Bakersfield. And so the middle part and the southern part of the San Joaquin Valley, and moving east into the foothills and mountains. So what we found was we had about 70 people respond to the partner report, the partner survey from the Federal Reserve Bank. And we looked at a lot of the financial challenges that actually were facing these particular businesses. And so we kind of see that a lot of them are similar, but where we get into a little bit of a discrepancy is that first one with the increased cost of goods or services and wages. Now, I know that, how California normally competes on a nationwide basis. Maybe we were a little bit more indoctrinated into the wages as the minimum wages increased over a pretty significant period of time, is one of the reasons I think I could explain that, as maybe some of the other states have seen it increase significantly higher in recent periods. Goods and services, that's pretty much the main one. But and also we also have a less, at least the ones that responded, the 70 individuals who responded from the San Joaquin Valley and Sierra Foothills, Eastern Sierra, also, ran into less of an issue with the associated cost of tariffs. So interesting to note there. So some of the other things that we learned from the particular survey was the financing and credit products. So we saw that where you really kind of associate this back to the fear of missing out is what are some of the programs that are out there and how are we utilizing them compared to the rest of the US? So what we're seeing is we do have the part that really sticks out on this particular is the loan amounts, is the higher percentage that actually sought lending and actually a loan program, and actually line of credit for that measure. Whereas we were more content with going with maybe one of the routes, such as a credit card, which, oftentimes can be decent funding these days. We also saw that some of the loans that were being applied for were either a loan, a line of credit, or an MCA. Now, remember, an MCA is a merchant credit account. It is a loan against your merchant account. So if you take credit cards, for example, debit cards, That is basically a function of an MCA. And so basically same number of respondents, about 70, but we saw a lot more that are not applying rather than those that are applying. So, we're here to help you kind of overcome some of the challenges with applying and finding the right program to apply for or the right alternative use. So interesting news, interesting revelation from the Federal Reserve annual survey. So beyond capital quarter, that's does it for now. We have our regular little thing called AI and question mark, and today it is AI and the fear of missing out. So here's a few of the numbers that we looked at from the same survey. Is the level of AI adoption at the time of the survey? Now, this one's kind of interesting because it does show that those that are experimenting with AI, partially integrated AI or fully integrated AI. Now, obviously, both myself and Rich Mostert with the Valley Community SBDC up in Clovis would like to see a higher integration, to see higher fully integrated businesses. Whereas if you look at the far right graph, we see that 7% of those that are already fully integrated. So, but we are seeing partially integrations at much higher than the national rates. And maybe those partially integrated will be fully integrated in next year's cycle. So we're seeing higher partially integrated and a lower amount of those experimenting with AI, which for me is a real positive for what we're seeing and what we want to see with that AI adoption. And if you want to figure out a way to get AI into your business a little bit better, hey, I've got the team. I've got a team of experienced senior level advisors. I'm pairing them with CSUB student interns, and we are providing some really interesting stuff. We'll be talking about some of the presentations and some of the great things coming out of the SBDC as we go to beta test and try with another couple of businesses. But keep that in mind. There are some absolutely outstanding. And again, it is for a whopping cut charge of free, 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 free. Our next focus is on the economic corner. Our economic corner is just pretty much that. It's our corner of the economy, and our corner of the economy is served no better than the Current Economic Journal, which has a new issue out. So the Current Economic Journal, where else can you find a oil derrick in a vineyard? Not too often. And with March Madness going on, we might have as well had a little fun with the Chicago University, which is basically a Division III school that is made up almost of an entire economist. And they made it to the Elite 8 of the tournament for Division III NCAA. And, I don't know about you, but I don't think of economists as being the greatest basketball players in the world. And maybe that's because they aren't, because they did lose that Elite 8 round. But really a nice run and a nice showing and a nice story for a bunch of economists that did a lot of good things right in the tournament. So our last part of our economic corner will just be one slide back from when Dr. Evans presented 2 weeks ago. And when he presented a couple of weeks ago, he's one of his final slides was for the macroeconomic back of the envelope outcomes. And so what he did was he looked at some of the disruptions that were going on and that were causing some of the issues, and would change some of the factors on your left. So on the left, he's got basically the price of oil. He's got the gross domestic product as far as growth, so the GDP, how the economy is growing. He's got two different rates for inflation and how much it's going to cost each of our households and what it's going to do for the unemployment rate. So, he did show that the early war recession probability estimates were 30 to 40%. I might have reminded him last week when a year ago, when tariffs came out, that many thought that that was going to create a recession back then, but really didn't. I think the rate then was higher, much in the 50% range. So the early war recession probability, 30 to 40%, is a consensus of economists. And then, really, the main economic issue of the war happens to be the Hormuz supply disruption through the Strait of Hormuz, and also if it's sustained for over a year, and how long that would be sustainable and what disruption it would cause. So you see with the price of oil, 10%, not too much. A little bit of growth is taking off of GDP, inflation between 3 and 3.3%, a little higher than we've been. Loss to a household income based on that inflation amount would be about $430 to $510 for the year. And then the unemployment rate would climb a little bit. And then you get into more of a severe shock, which would be the 50%, which would be oil going to 142 a barrel. After the Russian invasion, which was the last time we had a significant oil shock, it went to much lower amounts than that. But if it goes to 142, you see some of the issues that could pop up, particularly in the inflation area, the cost of the household, and the unemployment rate. So that's what our economist had to say. And if you really want to go see what he always said, you can go back and you can go to our YouTube channel, the CSUB SBDC YouTube channel, where Dr. Evans' full webinar presentation is up and on demand and ready to go. Some of the other tools that we'll be referencing indirectly today would be the vertical IQ industry analysis. We talked about the findings right over here from the Federal Reserve 2025 credit survey. A lot of different tools that your SBDC advisor, student intern can work with you and get to your business up and flying. So there's our CSUB SBDC YouTube, over 500 subscribers. Thank you so much for that. So on with our small business and small business fear of missing out. So a lot of what we're going to talk about right now is, and there's going to be a lot of text, but it's just really a lot of what missing out is and missing out on the opportunities. So we're going to be talking about a lot of what the opportunities are today and many of the opportunities that owners might miss. And what are some of the successful entrepreneurs doing differently? At the very end, we're going to jump in and look at 10 things successful entrepreneurs do. And I wish I did all 10 of those. And then also look for the hidden opportunities that many small businesses potentially will overlook. And I really think the first opportunity is you're going to get this every time with this financial person is some of the financial intelligence that's out there and some of the tools that can assist you more on the financial side of things. Now, I did notice in your survey, and I'm not going to spend much time on this because of the poll question at the beginning, which had very few of you interested, from a percentage basis anyway, in financial intelligence. So we're going to just kind of breeze through this, but opportunity number one for you and the fear of missing out is understanding your cost and margins potentially a little better. And really, the margins and knowing the margins on and your numbers on your particular business are so helpful. And really, it's really helpful once it gets to the decision-making process because now you have some really good data to base decisions on, to base your strategy moving forward. Another thing that I'll talk about in a few moments, just because I really like this particular topic, and I think it's very important for small businesses, for those of you that have multiple, say, small business loans or want multiple small business loan, it's knowing what your cost of capital is. But it's not only knowing what your cost of capital is, but it's really understanding and knowing what your borrowing power is. So really understanding your financial intelligence really comes down to being able then to identify how much you can potentially borrow later on. It also gives you the opportunity to set some goals. If you have financial goals, you can look at some of the key performance indicators and you can track them. And you can go back and you can learn what's working and what's not working. And you know me, I have displayed several different types of cash flow forecasting. Oh, in the past, we had Cash Flow Mike and his fantastic programs on cash flow and managing cash flow in your business. To we've had our webinar where we actually did the 13-week moving average cash flow. And of course, you know what mine is going to be. Mine is going to be the 1 year, month-to-month cash flow that shows where you're going to be strong and where you're going to be weak on particular cash flows. And also, it's good for industrial analysis. But I couldn't go past it without showing just the blank model, basic cash flow forecast. And about how nice it is to be able to go in and to set a budget. Yeah, this could be your budget. Don't budget, you can cash flow and set a budget all at once. And so you go in and you set it, and then you come in and you fill in another sheet that has the actual results, and it really becomes powerful, the availability power that you have to learn. Opportunity number two for me, and especially with already what we've talked about today with AI, is going to be technology and automation. So potentially that could be for your financial systems. I still know people that operate their business using old style manual accounting systems, and I support them behind that. They know what they're doing, they know their business, they know how it operates, they know their numbers, and they pull the numbers all the same. Now, in most of these cases, these are businesses that have been around a long time. They've been around and they could have changed, but they didn't. So I'm not going to say always you're going to need to switch to some type of financial accounting system or financial other automation system. It's a case by case basis with your business. But in most of those cases, it's going to be enhancing financial systems and actually taking the time to automate those particular systems and learn them. Really can really mean a lot moving forward. So using technology also is also going to be something that can be used in marketing opportunities. Now, I usually yield to Maureen on the marketing aspect of this, but there is so much information that is coming out with technology, with AI, that are really helping market other opportunities. Even something as simple as those that haven't even put together a website, making it easier for them to do that. AI is making them easier for them to work their particular social media and also to look for other opportunities in marketing that they didn't even know existed. So, using technology in your marketing opportunities to promote your business and get more customers, very valuable. And that, of course, is using some AI tools. And we're talking in and out about AI tools as this stuff kind of weaves together a lot of this today. So we'll be talking some of the AI tools, but also, one of the things that we're starting to see is we're starting to see more online and AI enhanced scheduling. Oftentimes, we're seeing it right now already in some that have really good data, and that good data is coming from point of sale systems. Could be coming from potentially a restaurant to where you have numbers, on an hourly basis for potentially the last 3 or 5 years. Who knows? Maybe more. But maybe it's the last 18 months that you want to look at, and you want to look and you want to see, when you can forecast a little bit better. You know, Restaurants are restaurants. People are going to show up and they're going to slam you or they're going to be completely ghosting you. Sometimes that's the way it feels. Either you're slammed or you're dead. So, but having some background and some history on what time of day that you're more likely to get slammed really makes it easier to work and do some scheduling and help in those particular areas. Opportunity number three is customer retention. And we've all seen the statistics. I'm not even going to share them with you today. That it is much easier to retain a good customer rather than go buy a new one. And that can get into some of the customer acquisition cost and some of the things along those lines. But customer retention and being a lot easier to retain customers rather than looking for new business, especially if they're good customers. And by good customers, they're the ones that you've been able to identify as your whales, or potentially another term that you might use, but they're just good customers that actually provide a bigger margin. They provide less work. It's like we've always said the 80-20 rule around here. And in many cases, 20% of your customers, 20% of your good customers make up 80% of your sales. It's true in a lot of businesses. So, what are the strategies that you're going to want to use? I think there's a lot of people are pretty good about social media marketing, but the one thing it seems like they forget is the email marketing aspect of it. And email marketing is still a viable alternative. If you don't believe me, ask Maureen. Many of you probably, subs- you know, responded to this particular webinar today through an email marketing campaign. So email marketing is good for all businesses and or good for most businesses. And you can actually start by building that mailing list today. Loyalty or rewards program is another particular good customer retention program that builds on not only brand but also loyalty aspect to that particular customer. And the customer responds back. So, reward and loyalty programs, referral systems, working with maybe strategic partners, maybe others, and then repeat successful business strategies. So, we mentioned the customer acquisition cost, and you hear this phrase a lot. And so I just thought I'd throw the definition out just for once and for all. I don't think we've ever done this. Customer acquisition cost is the total of all your sales and marketing expenses. That's everything that you do from outreach to direct sales and everything in between. All your sales and marketing expenditures divided by the number of new customers that you've acquired. And there you have it. Opportunity number 4, strategic partnerships. So with strategic partnerships, there's a lot that can go on. And I am really a fan of this as a capital acquisition tool. Oftentimes, I think there are strategic partners that will invest in your particular business if they have a actual interest in that particular business. I've given the example a few times of a manufacturer that I worked with a while back, and the manufacturer actually bought the particular business from who would end up being their supplier. And so they were supplying 50 to 60% of the cost of the product, and it was in the actual best interest for that business to continue for that supplier who funded that strategic partnership. So, but there's a lot of things getting out of the funding aspect of strategic partnerships. You can get into cross promotions to where you have similar type of maybe you have entertainment or food and beverage, and you combine them and promote events and other types of promotions. You can have referral agreements, both either informal or formal, to where there could be even some compensation shifting with those referral agreements based on how lucrative they are, and also work with the shared audiences that you have. But be finding ways to strategically partner with other businesses, I think is really something that many, many small business owners overlook. Really, I think this is really power pricing and the power of pricing is really something that I think is really difficult these days. Um, it's really one of the items that comes up in SBDC advising that I see the largest range. For example, you know, I see people that don't value their products and sell it high enough, and they're giving away their product or service. And I see others that I think are overpriced based on the methods that they use to increase prices. So I see it across both spectrums. So range is a big issue, but some of the things that I think we really don't get into enough is concepts. And one of the concepts I really like is value pricing. And value pricing is basically a concept to where, you're pricing to bring value to the customer. The customer comes to you because of the value that you're bringing or the product that is brought. So, are you the cheapest option? Well, maybe, and maybe that you are, and maybe that's risky. Are you the most expensive option? Also very risky because you will be shopped for value. But value-based pricing and how you price based on value that you bring to the customer is, I think, really one of the more valuable concepts that we use in pricing. So another thing, maybe, it's not bad to discount or to coupon, but it gets addictive after a while and your customers expect it. And so, whereas it's good at times, I think avoiding excessive discounting is really one of the criterias of power pricing. So obviously spurring some demand, it's some maybe you have a slow point of year and seasonality jumps in and you might want to keep your workforce going. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe there are financial factors of keeping your workforce going and keeping key employees in their positions during slower times. But really, avoid excessive discounting, basically high percentages, and continually, or your customers will just see that as a value priced product. And really, you look at the value and not really the fact that the normal price is much more than that. Oftentimes, owners don't charge for their expertise. And you really kind of see that to where when you're really adding value for maybe a manufacturing or special application, a custom application that needs a significant input, it's expected that that expertise should be compensated for. So when you get into areas of expertise, charge for it. And also increase your margin strategically. So, really, kind of the strategic aspect of it is important as well, as we kind of demonstrate here with a couple of tools. The first tool is what I like to call it the margin and price sensitive analysis. And this is using AI to help identify which products or services can absorb price increases. So, what you're looking for is you're hoping to spot low margin items that look busy but don't pay. So by that, what you're trying to do is you're trying to find low margin items that really aren't a huge part of it. And the example that ChatGTP and some of the exports will, you can put in, analyze the top SKUs by margin. And that could be in your particular industry. We could also jump into Excel, for example, and look at Excel and use some AI formulas. Potentially use that in Copilot works pretty well with Excel as a platform, but kind of look at some of the formulas there. And also, we're seeing a lot of great information coming out of point of sale systems, because you see a lot of analytics in there, a lot of information, alluded to a little of it earlier. And so some of those, particularly in the food and beverage industry, will really show a lot of really interesting aspects and really can show you your top margins, your top sales items, and really kind of show, based on margin, which ones. And, really one of the examples I like to throw around a lot with margin is that if you know what your margins are for, let's say, your top 20 items in a food and beverage business, if you know what your top 20 margins are and you know what your top 20 sales are, it gives you a lot of flexibility on both pricing and it gives you some flexibility on promotion. The second tool, and it's more or less a sales and marketing tool. So we're looking at, kind of a tool that does value translation. And so what AI helps with is it turns the feature into a value language. And so the pricing explanations that reduce pushback. So what you're looking for is you're looking for particular language that keeps and reduces the amount of pushback from your customer. Some of the examples might be AI prompt for pricing, email copy, and also proposed language for service aspects. Opportunity number six, access to capital. Okay, we talked pretty good about the SB, but really, a lot of people that walk in our door end up leaving with alternative funding options. And so, really, it's those alternative funding options that we really like to tout because those are the ones that are harder to find and harder to serve and harder to actually know that they're actually out there. But also the borrowing potential. And when somebody comes in and talks to me about wanting a small business loan, I want to know what their borrowing potential is. I know what lenders are looking for. I mean, you might come in and want $1 million loan, and your business might be up on a very scaling trajectory, but maybe your borrowing potential isn't there yet. And so then it's more or less, if you want to borrow, how much can we borrow based on what lenders would likely approve, based on a variety of the things out there, such as your collateral, the condition of your business and industry, the condition of your um, financials, credit, etc. So, what is your borrowing potential? And also, we like to look at, we love crowdfunding here. So, we always like to look at that and other funding tools as well. So, I mentioned earlier our weighted average cost of capital. There it is, kind of a fancy formula that just kind of combines a couple of different interest rates and terms and gives you one interest rate, blending those two together. But there's our funding options. There's a lot of our other programs that are out there that actually jump into some of the alternative options that are available. And we're looking at some of them right now that could be more popular than others. For example, the state guaranteed program. There's 7 FDCs. Those are financial districts in California, financial development corporations in different districts, and they fund both for-profit and nonprofit. So they have a state of California guaranteed loan program that's similar to the SBA program. And we're seeing more and more lenders jump on those particular programs. But we can get into some unique types of funding also that we see as acceptable in certain situations, such as invoice or accounts receivable financing, purchase order financing, equipment leasing. There's a lot of different ways to fund a business. I like to say it's limited to the amount of creativity you put forward in that particular area. So there should be no fear of missing out on funding if you go into it with a broad enough approach to a lot of different funding options that are available and finding one that fits best for your particular business. So I like to think that the opportunity equation, as I call it, is opportunity equals the problem that you're going to solve, I might add, plus your customer and improving, and then the data and testing that particular data. So when we're starting to talk about opportunities here, and we're talking about opportunities equal, they equal basically the problem, the customer, the improvement in the data. Not quite ready to go there yet. Ready to go here. So that brings us to our top 10, which are the weekly habits of successful entrepreneurs. Again, I wished I had all 10 of these. So, number one is review financials weekly. And I'm going to change weekly to regularly because I think in some businesses it would probably be sooner than weekly, and others I think it would be potentially even monthly. But review financials on a regular basis. Number two is to focus on revenue generating activities. How often is it that we get distracted by the potential or by the non-revenue generating activities? Far too often. And when we're focusing on the revenue generating activities, what do we want to focus on? Yeah, those that generate the most revenue, or at least the highest margin. Engage with customers directly is another successful habit. Improve one system or process, and that's where it starts. It starts with one process, one system. Build or nurture key relationships. So we're looking at potentially, relationships make the world go around. Continue to do that on a business level. Track your KPIs, whatever's important to you, whatever key performance indicator. It could be one, it could be a dozen, it could be more. Invest time in learning. Or, as I always like to say, invest time in your business rather than just working in your business. Delegate or eliminate low value tasks. So those things that you might enjoy and you're comfortable with and you like and maybe brings you satisfaction, but they're low value, delegate those or eliminate them altogether. Another of the top 10 habits of successful entrepreneurs is to test a new idea or opportunity. So not only are they out there doing it, they're wanting to continue with a new idea, a new opportunity, and then plan the next week intentionally rather than letting somebody plan it for you, I guess. And those are the top 10 habits of successful entrepreneurs. Which brings us back to contact us for confidential, no cost, no obligation expert consulting. We do have some time for some questions. We'll go through the chat box. So we'll jump in to the chat box, sign up for free, confidential one-on-one service. CSUBSBDC.com is all you need to know and the only place you need to go. So let's get into our chat box, some of the uh, information in here. Greetings and salutations. Start off, there's a link to the State Small Business Credit Initiative and the free home buying seminar. You can jump on those right away if you want out of chat. Need help on an AI project? Email me. I'd love to talk to you about it. Got it? Got it going? Fits this week's topic? Yeah, let's go. The cash flow management finance tool. We also have, for those that are looking to start a business, a lot of the stuff in there that you can get from the SBDC. No questions in our chat. So let's go to our question box and see what we have in here today. How do we get help with AI for our business? Well, I think the first thing would be to sign up as an SBDC client. You can actually sign up. There's the contact information on your screen for another moment or two. But you can actually then jump in and sign up and identify what you really want to fix. So I think the great thing about that is come up with a plan. Think what you want to do, what you want to fix, or ask our advisors what they're seeing other businesses do. Maybe others in your particular industry. Maybe look at an industry analysis. So yes, if you want AI assistance for your business, work with the SBDC on that. That's going to conclude us and wrap us up with webinar number 376, the fear of missing out. Who would ever thought it'd take us 376 webinars and on April Fools of all time? And really, there's no snow in the background, really. There's no snow in Bakersfield. But anyway, it's April Fool's Day. Okay, so that's going to do us for 376. We'll be back next week with 377. Got some good special guests coming your way, so stay tuned. For our webinar producer, Maureen Busher-Dang, I'm Kelly Bearden. Have a great rest of your week out there, and everybody take it easy. Goodbye now.